Len Halladay, my grandfather, originated the Adams-Trout fly in the summer of 1922. Yet his story began long before that, when he was born in a log cabin at a now overgrown homestead south of Mayfield, Michigan, on December 29, 1872. His father and grandfather had come to northwestern Michigan, like so many Civil War veterans after the conflict, to harvest white pine. The family eventually settled in Mayfield, a small logging village established in 1869, which, unlike so many others similar to it, still survives. After finishing 8th grade, he did various jobs in the logging industry near Mayfield and at the village's hydroelectric plant. Throughout his life, he rarely left Mayfield other than to visit his children downstate. Grandpa left the state only once to visit a daughter in Chicago and attend the World's Fair in 1933. His life revolved around providing for a family and the outdoor world in the Mayfield area. In the early 1900s, as logging in the area was dwindling, he bought the Kelly boarding house where loggers stayed in the village and renamed it the Halladay Hotel. There he raised 6 children. The area around Mayfield was bleak after the pines were stripped. Deadheads in the Boardman River and stumps in the field were the remnants when the logging and mill industries moved elsewhere. Grandpa adapted and became a hunting and fishing guide when logging and mill work ceased. People traveled north from Chicago and southern Michigan to stay at the hotel, and Grandpa guided them to good hunting and fishing spots on the nearby Boardman River. He started fishing at an early age. In an interview which Harold Schmedley writes of in his book, Fly Patterns and Their Origins, Grandpa says, quote, "I have been tying flies since 1917. I haven't caught a fish on a baited hook for the last 35 years. I use the fly only." End of quote. Since the interview took place no later than 1943, someone else must have given Grandpa flies to fish with in his youth. I suspect it was R.H. Whitcomb, a Grand Rapids, Michigan furniture maker, fly fisher, and fly tyer. The long-forgotten Whitcomb dry fly was named after him. According to family lore, Ralph Whitcomb taught Grandpa how to tie flies when he came north to fish the Boardman. He was very fond of Grandpa and gave him a gold pocket watch, on the back of which is inscribed R.H. Whitcomb, 1889, and H. Whitcomb, 1871. I had the good fortune to inherit it. In the summer of 1922, Grandpa originated the Adams. He named the fly after a good customer, C.F. Adams, who had a summer cottage on Arbutus Lake near Mayfield. Adams was an ardent trout fisherman who came north from Cleveland to fish the Boardman. As Grandpa himself told Schmedley, quote, "The first Adams I made I handed to Mr. Adams, who was fishing in a small pond in front of my house, to try on the Boardman that evening. When he came back the next morning, he wanted to know what I called it. He said it was a knockout, and I said we would call it the Adams, since he had made the first good catch on it." End of quote. George Herter, in his book Professional Fly Tying, Spinning, and Tackle Manual and Manufacturing Guide, writes of an interview with Grandpa in the late 1930s or 1940s. Quote, "Leonard sold the first Adams dry fly to Mr. Adams for an evening fishing on the Boardman River. The fly proved to be a tremendous producer, and the name Adams was permanently given this fly because Adams was a good customer and made the first large catch using it." Previous to this, the fly was called the Halladay. The Adams pattern given to me by Mr. Leonard Halladay is exactly like this. Tail, 2 fibers of golden pheasant tippet. Body, gray wool yarn. Wing, narrow Plymouth Rock rooster neck hackle tied forward and semi-spent wing. Hackle, 1 Plymouth Rock, 1 Rhode Island red rooster neck hackle, round together. Head, black tying thread. End of quote. In the vise he used to tie the first Adams. Since 1922, mostly through word of mouth passed from fisherman to fisherman, the Adams and its variations have become worldwide dry fly favorites on trout streams in every continent where a variety of trout species are found, and it fools all of them. Many trout fishermen claim the Adams is the best fly ever conceived. Some say they fish with only 3 flies, Adams tied on size 12, size 14, and size 16 hooks. Others say that if they had to fish for their supper and were allowed only 1 fly pattern, it would be the Adams. On the other side of the globe in Australia during 1967, I read an article that claimed a yellow-bodied Adams was the country's favorite fly. The following summer, I tried it on the Boardman with good success. Dozens of variations of the Adams fly have spawned, some with colorful names like the Edie Adams, vivacious and sexy, the Ansel Adams, shades of gray in sharp contrast, very effective in Yosemite, the Pepper Adams, jazzy and bouncy, the Samuel Adams,